Hello, this is 1-3, solving one-step equations. So today we're going to learn about variables and how to solve for variables. So when we encounter a variable, it's usually going to be x. I like to write it like this so I can differentiate it between this, which I might interpret as multiplication. Variables are just placeholders that can represent a value. For example, x might equal 2, or x might equal -4. It all just depends on where it is on the equation and what's around it. For example, if you had x plus 1 equals 2, you could probably guess that x equals 1 because 1 plus 1 equals 2. However, as you get to more complex equations, that might not work anymore. You're going to have to learn to solve equations, and that's what we're going to do today. So, the first thing we need to understand is that the opposite of addition is subtraction. And the opposite of multiplication is division. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, for example, if we had in our example 1, x plus 1 equals 2, we see here that we have plus 1. So we look at the opposite, which is subtract 1. So we subtract 1 from both sides, and we get x equals 1. That's what we wanted. All right, so what else can we do with this? Well, you might actually be asking, why did we subtract 1? So the purpose of what we just did was to get x by itself on one side of the equal sign. Because our answer should be x by itself on one side of the equal sign equals, and then something. Try to find out what x is, and it'd be very helpful if x was by itself on its own side of the equal sign. So we know that x is equal to whatever's on this side. Okay. So say we had x minus 3 equals 4. What should we do? Well, we see a minus 3 here. And we know that the opposite of subtraction is addition. So we have to add 3 to both sides. And notice we added 3 to this side as well, because if you don't add to the other side, then it's no longer equal. All right. So what do we get? Well, we get x minus 3 plus 3 equals 4 plus 3. This is just what we added. And if you subtract 3 and you add 3, that's the same as doing nothing. So that means x equals 4 plus 3 is 7. So now let's plug it in. Everywhere we see x, we can plug it in with 7. So we can get 7 minus 3 equals 4. Is that true? Yep, that is true. Now we're going to go to multiplication and division. Say we had 3x equals 9. Well, what is x? Well, first of all, we have to understand, what does 3x mean? Well, 3x means 3 times x. And here we see multiplication. What's the opposite of multiplication? Well, that's division. So you need to divide both sides by 3. Again, you're dividing both sides by 3. Otherwise, if you do just the one side, it'd be it wouldn't be equal anymore. So these 3's cancel out, and you get x is equal to 3, because 9 divided by 3, well, that's 3. Now let's plug it in, just to make sure that x equals 3 is the correct answer. So back to our original question. 3 times, and whenever we see x, we can replace it with a 3, equals 9. 3 times 3, that does, in fact, equal 9. What about another example? What about half of x equals 7? Well, what does this mean? Well, here's another multiplication problem. 1/2 times x. What's the opposite of multiplication? Well, it's division. So you can divide both sides by 1/2. These halves cancel out. X is equal to 7 divided by 1/2. Keep change flip, 7 times 2. X is equal to 14. Check your answer for time's sake, but if you have the time, I definitely recommend to check your answer. Now let's do x divided by 4 equals 8. Well, what's the opposite of division? Well, that's multiplication. So what we can do is multiply both sides by the same number, in this case 4, because we're going to get rid of this 4. These 4 cancel out, and you're left with x is equal to 32, because 8 times 4 is 32. Let's do one more example. 2/3 of x is equal to 24. Another way of doing this is to find the reciprocal. Reciprocal basically means flipped it. So the reciprocal of 2/3, if you flip the two numbers on the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator, you get 3/2. And when you multiply them, you'll realize that these two cancel out, and you get 1. So let's actually try that out. If we multiplied both sides by 3/2, what do we get? Well, these 3 cancel out, these 2 cancel out, and you get 1 times x is equal to 36. And again, 1 times x, that's just x. And x equals 36. Okay, we'll do one more example. X divided by 2 equals 3. Pause the video and see if you can solve it by yourself. Okay, assuming that you've tried, the first thing we should do is realize that this is division, so the opposite of division is multiplication. And to get rid of the 2, we have to multiply both sides by 2. These 2 cancel out, you're left with x, but not 2. X. 3 times 2, well, that's 6. So x equals 6. That's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, make sure to ask. And the homework is due on Friday and it's in Google Classroom. The test is also tomorrow, so make sure to review your notes. Calculators are not allowed on this test, but your notes definitely are. Hope you enjoyed and learned something new.